My name's Kurt Conrad, and you're listening to West Fourth and Goal, presented by Old Carolina Barbecue Company, a podcast for high school sports fans in north central Ohio. I'm joined by co-host Effie James and producer Noah Jones, and we're coming to you from the IdeaWorks podcast studio on West 4th Street in downtown Mansfield. We've got a great show in store for you this week, but before we dive into it, let's take a minute to thank the program's title sponsor, Old Carolina Barbecue Company.
Old Carolina Barbecue is authentic barbecue inspired by the Great Carolinas. Head over for your Sunday meal for all-you-can-eat barbecue at 2035 4th Street in Ontario, Ohio, and you'll agree it's the best barbecue in town.
We should also take a moment to thank Two Cousins Pizza. Two Cousins is the official pizza of West 4th and Goal. Andy McIntyre and his team at Two Cousins offer what is without question the best sauce in all of north central Ohio. No matter what you're hungry for, give Two Cousins a call at 419-522-2211 or stop by the shop at 103 North Main Street here in downtown Mansfield. Two Cousins Pizza, it's the official pizza of West 4th and Goal. And just one more thing before we introduce this week's guest. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, you're probably familiar with the work of Richland Source, and you can help us out and maybe win a $100 gift card just by completing our reader survey.
Wow.
Noah, tell everyone how they can jump in and get some.
All right. Yeah, so we have this survey that you and I both helped create. It takes about 6 minutes to complete, I think, on average. So far, we've had about 1,100 people take the survey, which is really, really awesome. I promised our publisher, Jay, that we would get to 2,500. So I really hope that as you're listening, you go to our Facebook page, Richland Source, and find the link to the survey. You can find it, I believe, under the banner. It says Learn More. You click that. It'll go to the survey, and you can take it, and you can make me look like a future good for my boss. So I'd really appreciate you taking it.
Absolutely. This episode of the podcast is kind of unlike anything we've done before, and that's because the last few days have been different than any days in the sporting world in a very long time. Before we dive into all that, let's introduce our guest this week. Our guest is a junior at Ontario High School. He's the leading scorer for a team that's in the hunt for a Mid-Ohio Athletic Conference championship. We're thrilled to be joined by Griffin Shaver. And Griffin, thanks for coming down and joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, like I said earlier, the sports world kind of came to a standstill on Sunday with the news of retired Los Angeles Lakers great Kobe Bryant's tragic death. Bryant, who transcended basketball, I think we can all agree. He was a global icon, but he was one of 9 people killed when the helicopter they were traveling in crashed in foggy conditions in Southern California. And Griffin, you're a guy from a younger generation, Generation Y, I guess. I mean, your basketball career was just kind of getting started when Kobe was retired. But when you hear that news, I mean, what goes through your mind there?
I mean, that's just awful to hear about, like anyone, but especially Kobe Bryant. I mean, like you said, I'm a younger generation. I never really got to watch Kobe. I was more a LeBron guy, but as I was trying to improve my game, he was one of the guys I'd go to and just watch his smaller footwork and stuff like that.
Right. And Griffin's the LeBron generation, but you and I mean, we're Generation X guys. We go back a long ways. We were around when Larry Bird and Magic Johnson kind of saved the NBA as far as I'm concerned, and we had a front row seat for Michael Jordan taking over, and when Jordan was getting close to retire, and everyone was like, well, who's next? Who's it going to be? And it's hard to find shoulders broad enough to fill that spot, and Kobe came along and did it.
Kobe Bryant was basketball needed him at that time. I think Michael Jordan was, he was the pinnacle for, basketball stardom in terms of what you do on the court, and also, who you were, what kind of personality you were. And so when Kobe came along, he was a dynamic personality as a younger player. He was a determined guy, and you can see it in his face. He wanted to win from game one. So basketball really needed him. And with him jumping from high school into the NBA, it kind of paved the way for younger players. And as you can see now, with the way basketball is played now, everybody models their game after Kobe. There's, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, big guy there. I listen to Stephen A. Smith say, a team needs a goon or a big guy. I'm like, there's no more goons in the NBA. I mean, everybody shoots threes. Everybody has got good footwork. Nobody does that anymore. And when you look at Kobe Bryant, his skill set is one that if you're a perimeter player, you want that, because he's got explosiveness, he's got touch around the basket, he's got deep range. So he really transcended the game, and I think LeBron came right after him.
Right.
and added about 40 pounds and really took, Kobe's template to another level. But Kobe Bryant, his effect on the game just can't be magnified enough, and it was just a terrible tragedy. The whole thing was awful.
Right. No, we talked a little bit about it earlier. I mean, F and I had Jordan and Griffin as LeBron, but Kobe was the millennial generations. He was their superstar. I mean, he's your guy.
I mean, I think outside of Allen Iverson or really it's just Kobe Bryant. Shaquille O'Neal, I mean, he was on part of that list too, but I think when it was time to pick out your jersey on your basketball team, you wanted 8, and then 24. And it's just it was the sort of thing when you saw the news break, you get the notification from ESPN on your phone. I did at least 2 double takes and I read 4 articles from different sources just to make sure that this wasn't this was true. It was a little earth-shattering, I think.
Yeah, and I saw it Sunday morning. I think it was on my social media feed. It was a TMZ article, and I don't think a lot of people have a real high opinion about TMZ. Honestly, though, they in the world of celebrity and Hollywood, they do a great job actually,
Right.
especially in Southern California. So you're kind of hoping against hope that, man, I just hope that they're wrong on this one. But sure enough, they weren't, and it was just tragic. I think. I mean, and F, you and I are both parents. You have daughters. I have a son who's 12 years old, and the thing that really hits me hard is that there were 3 13-year-old girls on that plane who and it's just so tragic.
I looked at that and like you said, I have 3 daughters, and I've got my youngest one now is 16, and I'm just like, I could not imagine what that's like for a parent. And I think everybody that is a parent, that even devastates you more, because as the information started to come out more and more, and it was just like after you got over the shock of Kobe being on the helicopter, for me it was knowing that he had all daughters, and he I'm a guy who has all girls. The first thing I started thinking, like, just not the girls, you know what I mean? And I knew there were more people on the plane. I'm just like, just not the girls. And so when found out that his 13-year-old daughter was on the plane, it's just tragic, and the world, and it shows his it really shows his effect and basketball's effect, and sports in general, his effect on the society, because this has rocked the nation and even the world in some spaces.
Yeah, and Kobe, I mean, his past transgressions are in the public realm.
Sure.
By all accounts, though, he has been nothing but a spectacular father.
Oh, sure.
And it's just so heartbreaking to know that there's a couple other girls who are going to grow up without their dad.
Yeah.
Especially his 6-month-old too. I mean, that was probably one of the more sad things for me. The fact that he's basically leaving the world with that little girl without getting to even know who he is, and I think that's really, really upsetting.
Right.
Yeah.
And just talking about players of Kobe's generation, I mean, you look at the '96 draft that he came out, and it was one of the greatest in NBA history. Allen Iverson was the number 1 pick. I think the Cavs picked 12, and they didn't take Kobe Bryant.
Right. Right.
But I mean, and for a long time, everyone was wondering who would kind of pick up the mantle, and they thought maybe it would be Iverson, but he's just not that kind of guy,
Right.
And Kobe, he came straight out of high school, and at the time that was unusual. I mean, Kevin Garnett, I think, did it the year before in '95,
Right.
but I mean, and then it was Kobe, and then
Right.
I mean, for a guy that young to come in and to be that confident and be like, yeah, I'll take that responsibility. That says a lot about a guy.
Well, and it was huge because if you remember, Kobe was probably like the first true perimeter player to come out of high school, and that's what people thought. It just wasn't, before. I think people like Moses Malone and all big guys, and even Kevin Garnett was a 7-footer.
Right.
That was the prototype if you were going to leave, and so a guard coming in, people really didn't think, but and I was we're in a fortunate position. We were Allen Iverson was one of my favorite guys,
right.
And having him come into the league at the same time, he had it.
Right.
But as their careers wore on, you saw how Kobe separated himself not only from Iverson, but he was built for longevity. and it was about the work ethic. And one of the articles that I read, and I told Marquise Sykes, like, if I was still coaching, I would show this to all my kids, and where Allen Iverson talked about a conversation he and Kobe Bryant had early in their career, and he asked him, he said, what are you, Kobe? He had just come to Philly. They were playing a game. The Lakers had come to Philly, and he asked Allen Iverson. He said, "Hey, what are you doing after the game?" He said, "Well, I'm going." Allen said, "Well, I'm going to the club." And Kobe Bryant, he said, "What are you going to do?" And Kobe said, "Well, I'm going back to the gym." And for me, that, and then you look at their careers, and Allen had a great career,
Absolutely.
but you look at the entirety of their career, and you can see what Kobe Bryant was made of was built for longevity. And this whole thing about Mamba mentality is something that you can equate to any part of anyone's life, and that's what's going to be his lasting legacy, I believe.
Yeah, and it's all very tragic. But another piece of it is, he after his retirement, it's not like he slowed down.
Yeah.
The guy won an Oscar award in 2018 for a short film he did. It's that work ethic. Whether you apply it to sports or anything else,
Absolutely.
it was just amazing to see.
Yeah, and that's so unique to me. But it's you can't, now that we're learning more about who he was and his drive, you would expect that. And any business venture he's involved in is going to succeed. Anything he writes is going to succeed because he's got that mentality. And you talked about his transgressions earlier in his career, and truly, I really feel like if you look at him from that point on,
Right.
he became a different man.
Absolutely.
Let alone a basketball player. He became a different man. And sometimes lessons are put in our lives to better us. And he made some poor choices, and from those choices created who he became and who he was. And I would argue that he may not have been the father he is or he was before he passed had he not gone through that. He may not have been the husband, or maybe not even a basketball player. So, one thing I take from that is, life lessons can always be, can do you good later on in life if you learn from them. And I think he did.
Yeah, and Griff, for a young guy who might not know all the story, I would imagine, just this happening and all this stuff being, stuff that we just have as life experience, but you're hearing all this stuff for the first time. It's probably pretty amazing to see what he's able to accomplish here during his career and then after.
Yeah, that's mainly what I've been kind of focusing on, is reading the articles of things that he's done after his NBA career, because that's what's most surprising to me, that a man like him, obviously great NBA players, just been able to do so much more for himself and other people.
Right, and I think basketball, like no other sport, the superstars, the superstars they're not just, in baseball and football, it's just different. These guys are like icons, worldwide
Absolutely.
icons,
Absolutely.
and he carried that mantle gracefully as well.
Yeah. And, David Stern, who passed away recently, has a lot to do with how the NBA became such a global brand.
Right.
And that's why, like you said, right now, the top stars in the NBA are worldwide stars.
Right.
They're known all over the world. And so because of that, it opens up so many more opportunities for them when they're done. And you look at some other sports, and I was listening to somebody talk about how baseball, for instance, has got to do a better job of marketing their stars. And that's why so many of them, sometimes play longer than they probably would like to. And sometimes their brand is just not worldwide or globally accepted.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think David Stern done an awesome job. And so you see guys like Kobe Bryant or even Shaquille, Charles Barkley, they go right into the booth. They go right into their second act. And it's just as successful as they were as basketball players. And that's a credit to what David Stern brought to the league before he retired.
Another thing that kind of struck me, I can't remember a time where, an athlete, granted, Kobe was retired for a few years here, but maybe when Roberto Clemente died, he was still a player and he had 3,000 hits, but maybe that is something. But beyond that, there's never been such a big star, taken away so early and so tragically. I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you brought up Roberto Clemente because I read a headline and I don't really remember if it's happening or if it's being questioned about happening, but I believe that they're going to make Kobe Bryant a Hall of Famer as soon as possible, similarly to Roberto Clemente.
That's what they did when Clemente died in the plane crash. So.
Yeah, and basketball is one of the unique, and my wife and I were talking about this the other day, and I thought about it. I said, it's weird because the greatest of the basketball, the NBA is so young that the greatest basketball players are mostly still alive.
Right.
Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, they had Oscar Robertson doing an interview, and, all these great basketball icons are still here.
Right.
Some of the greats of the game are still here. So when someone who is taken so young, that's why I think the public has responded, because all of the basketball greats, for the most part, there are some that have passed on, but for the most part are still here. And so when they do the memories and all of that, and you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar doing a video tweet, and Oscar Robinson talking, and these guys, it's like, wow, that really puts it in perspective, because the NBA still has its stars.
Right.
They're still here. A lot of them are still working.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what makes it such a blow to the NBA society, and that's why people, I believe, just can't believe it.
And there's been so many neat tributes, I think, around. I mean, Griff, did you guys? I mean, I don't know if you guys had even talked about doing something like that, or did you guys? It never even came up or anything. I guess there's no 24-second shot clock, or 8-second backcourt violation that you guys could take. But I mean, never even occurred. I mean, you guys didn't do anything, or?
No, I mean, we mainly just talked about Coach Baylog just brought in his work ethic and how we need to kind of look at him and use that stuff. Right. But no, nothing like that. Really.
What was Monday's practice like for you guys? I mean, was it mostly talking and not maybe doing as much work as normally you guys would do?
Yeah, we kind of just focused on his life, I guess. Just he talked about Coach Baylor told us some stories and stuff just when he got to watch him play and stuff like that, and just how we need to kind of relay on a man like Kobe just because of how great hard worker he was.
Right, and I think if you and I are a little older, I mean, it's I guess if there's a lesson to be learned, it's don't take any moment, I guess, for granted.
Well, absolutely. That's the great lesson, and the thing I think that Kobe Bryant personifies is the fact that there's a lot of great athletes and athletic players that are born flat out with the ability to play. You see that in high school more than anything, where you see guys who are just good. Right. They can step on the court, they can step on the field, they can do whatever they want. They're going to be good. But the one thing that Kobe Bryant kind of personified was the fact that, I'm good. I'm probably better than most of the league, but I'm also going to outwork everybody in the league. And that's how you become iconic and legendary, is because you don't just rely on your athletic ability or your God-given talent, which he probably had enough to be a Hall of Famer. Right. But he took the time, and what a lot of young people don't realize, and looking back on even my own career, I had no clue, that it takes the sacrifice that it takes to be great. Right. And, a lot of people say they want to be great, but that comes with a sacrifice. And I think Kobe, he understood that. He sacrificed a lot to get where he was, but he was in the prime of his second act where he was reaping the benefits of all of his sacrifice. And that's what kind of makes it sad, because it was time for him to start reaping those benefits of all of the hard work and all of the late nights in the gym where he couldn't see his girls and all those things that he missed during his playing days. He was getting that stuff back, and that's what kind of makes it really tragic.
Right. Well, let's reset here, and well, I'll tell you what. Let's take a break here real quick and pay the bills, and then we will rejoin Griffin Shaver in just one moment. You're listening to West 4th and Goal, presented by Old Carolina Barbecue Company.
Old Carolina Barbecue has recently installed a new drive-thru at their 2035 4th Street location in Ontario, Ohio. Go ahead and grab some authentic barbecue inspired by the Great Carolinas and use the drive-thru. Old Carolina Barbecue, where the best barbecue in town is slowly smoked with quick service.
Welcome back to West 4th and Goal, presented by Old Carolina Barbecue Company. I'm Kurt Conrad, and I'm here with co-host Effie James and producer Noah Jones. And we're joined in studio by Ontario's Griffin Shaver. Now, Griffin, I'm sure you probably do know it because it seems like you are well versed in your high school basketball history and Ontario history. But I mean, you're playing for a living legend. I mean, Joe Baylog. I mean, the guy's name is on the court. I mean, what's it? Does it even? I mean, you've done it your whole career, but I mean, do you realize just how what a great career Joe's had? I mean, is it even something that crosses your mind?
I mean, yeah, but then again, I guess it's kind of just in the moment. It's something that I haven't really reflected on yet. But I mean, Coach B is obviously a great basketball coach, but people from the outside wouldn't really know. It's the stuff he does, like too. Like, he's also just a great leader. He cares about us. Just asks like how we're doing in life, school, everything like that. Just makes him a great person.
And I think he's up over 500 wins now. And F, when you were coaching at senior, you guys they hadn't. I guess you guys weren't playing Ontario yearly like what's going on now. But just having a guy like Joe in the area, I mean, that probably makes you up your game a little bit.
Well, it was awesome, man. And Joe is like Griffin was saying, he's such a great guy. He's a guy that we played summer leagues there with him for years.
Oh, that's right.
And he would always before we would start playing him, and even afterwards, I believe they did. But he was always there to give a good word. And I remember my first year I got the job. I went over. We were playing summer ball over at Ontario, and and I had never really talked to him. I was an assistant, so I said hello to him, but I never really had a conversation with him.
Right.
So I was kind of I think I was kind of nervous, talking to him as the head coach, and I said, Coach Baylog, how are you, sir? I think he said, and he looked at me. He said, "Sir, are you kidding me?" And I said, "Oh," no. And from then on, he was really great to me. And he said, anything you need, give me a call, and I'll be there to help you out. And he gave me some really good tips over the years. Every now and then, I'd ask him certain things about certain teams, and he would be more than willing to help me. So it's great to have a guy like that knows, basketball, and that can be a resource for you when you're possibly going to see something you haven't seen before. So on top of being just a great coach and accomplished, he's a really good guy.
Yeah, I think he's right around 525
Yeah.
wins, something like that. I mean, as soon as he becomes eligible, the Basketball Coaches Association is going to throw open the Hall of Fame doors for him.
It might do it before that.
Yeah, but, I mean, that said, for him, I mean, he certainly doesn't have to take time out of his schedule to talk to young coaches like that. But I think that says a lot about his character.
Well, it does, and I think that the more that you have, and this day and age, it's a lot of turnover in coaching.
Right.
And it wasn't always that way for high school coaches. And it used to be you get a job and that's where you were for your career,
right,
because most times you're a teacher, so you coached as long as you taught, and then when it was time to go, then it was time to go. But anymore, it's a great benefit to have coaches like Coach B and have him still, he's so true to who he is as a coach, and you can see that in his teams year in and year out. They're always competitive and always well prepared.
Right. And Griffin, you came in a couple years ago as a freshman, and not only did you come in and contribute as a freshman, but you started as a freshman. You led the team in scoring as a freshman. Did you ever imagine in your wildest dreams that you would have that big of an impact that early in your career?
I mean, no. When we started in June, I came in. I was full JV. I mean, I talked to the coaches. There was no other plan for me besides playing JV, and that's what he's kind of always joked about at the end of the freshman year. He just said how him and the coaches never once thought that I'd have to take that role, and they just assumed that it'd be on JV and stuff like that. So,
I mean, that's and we've had a conversation or two about this. Some guys aren't prepared to handle that young, that early in their career, but to have a guy come in and do it, that's special.
Yeah, the ability to do it, and then the capability of doing it while the lights are on bright those are two separate mindsets.
It's the Mamba mentality.
It is the Mamba mentality.
And most kids really can't. They don't get it, and it takes a while for them. So if you got a freshman. And I remember Coach Jefferson used to always tell me when I first started coaching, I said, when Keon Johnson was a freshman and, he was going to play for us. And he said, hey, listen, He said, it's fine to play a freshman, but just know for every freshman and sophomore you play, that's going to be a loss on your record. And I said, what? He said, yeah. He said they all can have the ability, but not all of them can handle the lights. And when you get one that can handle the lights and has the ability, that's special. That's special.
And Keon was one of those guys. He's one of the
Sure.
I mean, for being 5 foot nothing and
Right.
100 and nothing, he came in and played Division I high school basketball and then
Right.
Division I college basketball at a real high level.
Yeah, those lights didn't bother him at all. I don't think they ever did.
Right. And last year, Griffin, you were about 12.5 points in a game. I think you guys were you guys really you pushed Norwalk, who eventually won the district championship. I mean, you guys pushed them to triple overtime in the district semifinal. What do you take away from a game like that, and how much has that kind of been motivation for you here for this year?
I mean, we knew what we could do in that game. It kind of showed us like the fight and energy we can have when we play together, and then we just kind of need that to come over into this season, which is our main thing we kind of keyed in on, is just the energy. Like I said earlier, just the first 3 minutes.
Right.
That's what we focus on.
And a lot of those guys even this year, you're a pretty young team. I mean, I would imagine you guys, given all your experiences and in the postseason stuff, you got to feel pretty strong, or, pretty confident, I guess, about what you guys can do here going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we've slipped up a few times this season, but that's just kind of on us. We figured it out, and we just got to keep moving forward.
Right. Now, I think this year you're one of the leading scorers in the MOAC, about 17 points a game. How has your role changed since the time you were? I would imagine there's more of a leadership piece involved now that you're a junior than a couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean, freshman, I've kind of just followed the seniors' role. They showed me what to do, kind of under their wing. Now the roles have kind of reversed. I mean, I just do what I can do to help my teammates, and just leadership, like you said.
Right. And I was looking on a website. I'm not even sure what it was, but I mean, you're already starting to climb the Ontario scoring leaders list. I think you had 500 points through your freshman and sophomore years. I mean, you'll probably end up with close to, who knows, 800, 900 this year. I mean, you're on a list, a short list that includes guys like Chris Morris and Brian Maloney, and those are guys that Effie and I are.
Sure.
They're more contemporary with
Yeah,
us, but I mean,
right.
that's a pretty. Those are some pretty big time names in Ontario basketball history.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Those guys are but what's interesting when you talk about, those names, it's like they fit. They fit Coach Baylog. They weren't guys that went out and were trying and felt like they needed to get 1,000 points or better. And the games I've watched, Griffin play, he fits that mold. He's like, I'm going to do what my team needs. Well, right now my team needs me to get a bucket, so I'm going to get a bucket. And that is something that again, it's unique. Because there's some teams in this area, struggling right now, and most of that comes from the fact that sometimes you need to get a basket or on offense, or you need to get a stop defensively, and not all teams have a guy that can say, you know what, we need a stop, I'm going to get it.
Right.
We need a basket, I'm going to get it. And when you have that, it makes your team better and makes you better as a coach when you have a guy that you could just throw it to and get a bucket.
Griffin, I don't know what it is about. I think I've covered Ontario 3 times this year, which means there's been the end of 12 quarters, and I think you've made 9 buzzer beaters at the end of those 12 quarters. What is it about those last few seconds each? I mean, is it drawn up for you, or do you just go get it and go make something happen?
I mean, Coach Baylog in our practice, we always do, it's time and score is what we call it,
Okay.
which really focus on. I mean, we're usually down a few points or something, 5 seconds on the clock, and we really just kind of key in on just getting that last bucket to give us a little momentum.
Yeah, I mean those are high pressure situations, and to have a guy who wants to go take that shot, that says a lot about him.
Yeah, and again, it's about the lights, though. And everybody wants it. When nobody's in the gym, everybody counts down in their bedroom at night and shoots it into the trash can and says, has that dream. But when the lights are on, do you really want the shot? Do you really want the ball? And that says a lot. That is a special talent to have, to even want to take the shot, let alone be able to make it.
Right.
But just the desire to take a shot in those pressure situations says a lot about the player.
It's funny you say that, because I've covered basketball for 20-some years, so I've seen a lot of high school games and
Sure.
a lot of games, deeper and deeper into the tournament, and it's funny to me how guys who don't mind shooting the ball in the sectional semifinals, they're going to defer and
Shrink.
get it out of their hands as soon as they can when
Shrink.
when it's in the regional championship game.
Absolutely. You see a lot of players at all levels.
Right.
At all levels can shrink in the bigger moments. And, it was always interesting to me. And I as a coach, I really always tried to make sure that, my better players didn't shrink in those moments. And my job as a coach is try to get, the best out of all your players. So they had confidence and the will to make big plays. So when I watch a couple games, I think I caught a couple Ontario games on television. I saw Griffin play, and I saw one of those shots you were talking about. And I'm thinking to myself, like, not every kid even wants the ball in that situation, because they know, like, the outcome of what I do with this ball is going to have a big impact on the game.
Right.
So it's great to have have players like that. I've been blessed to have a few. Not a lot,
right?
A few that really wanted the ball in those moments.
And it's funny. I mean, you said that happens at all levels. I remember hearing Richard Jefferson tell a hilarious story about the LeBron game, and he was saying, in that Game 7 of that championship game, he, just don't give me the ball in the corner. I don't want it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to shoot it. I don't want to be the guy. But I mean, even at that level, there's guys who don't like the lights.
Everywhere you see guys shrink when the lights come on, and I think it's humanizing to see guys that are like, because sometimes you watch them on television and you think, man, everybody's a star. Well, everybody is talented, but everybody's not a star.
Right.
For sure.
Now, Griffin, we had a good conversation after the Clear Fork game. I think you guys beat Clear Fork last Saturday. I think you had 19 that night. I mean, that kept you in the hunt for an MOAC championship, I guess, in theory. But I mean, we were talking afterward, and it's going to be an uphill climb for you guys to get back into it. You're 2 games behind Shelby with 4 to play or something. Mm-hmm. I mean, in a perfect world, every game is it's very important, and they all are for sure. But I mean, have you changed your focus, I guess, more away from a conference championship and toward the postseason at this point?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of just talked about it as a team, just realizing it's kind of not. It's not in our control anymore.
Right.
It's just hoping the other teams can kind of, make something happen. But yeah, we're just keep preparing for the postseason. Basically, just focus on the next team, though. Not overlooking anyone.
Maybe that's not a terrible thing. I mean, maybe the postseason is what it's all about at the end of the day. And if you can begin preparing for that and don't have to focus as much on the day to day. I mean, maybe that's not such a terrible place to find yourself.
Yeah, I actually was talking to Marquise Sykes here earlier, and the Tigers are struggling a little bit in the first half of their season, and I was like, this is a time where you got to work on getting better every day, and whatever will happen with the league race will happen, but you got to focus on getting better every day. Your practice tomorrow's got to be better than it was yesterday, and your game has got to be better. So when you do, the great thing about high school, you get a second opportunity at a second season. So, it would, if you just pack it in because you didn't win the league, or you had some trip ups here and there and didn't win the league, then your tournament run could be cut short when you could be taking this time to get better as a team and working on those flaws, and you could roll into the tournament one of the hottest teams. Mansfield's football team didn't win the league.
Right.
But I think had they won the league, they may not have had such a great tournament run. So, it's an opportunity to prepare for a great second season if you can season. I know a coach like Coach Baylog is going to have his guys ready to play.
And last night, you guys hosted Norwalk, a team that you played in the district semifinal last year. You took one on the chin last night. They came in and beat you 65-45. But I mean, Norwalk is coached by a guy who has some local ties, Steve Gray. And with Joe, I mean, that's a lot of wins in the gym right there. Those are two pretty good coaches trading X's and O's. Sure. What did they do that caused you guys problems? And that's a team you could see down the road here. I mean, that's a team that you could see in the tournament. I mean, what did you learn about last night, or learn about yourselves last night?
We just had the quick turnaround. I mean, Saturday to Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And Coach Gray, I mean, he's a great coach with his offensive sets. I mean, Scouter, we probably had 30-plus sets that we had to try to figure out in 2 days. I mean,
that's him.
that was our biggest problem is they just caught us lacking on some, mainly backdoors or stuff like that. I mean, all credit to them. They came out to play. We just didn't have the energy and stuff that night.
And it's funny. I mean, I think when I played high school basketball in the '90s, there certainly weren't 30 sets that we were running. I mean, is that just the state of high school basketball? I mean, you played then and you coached in the 2000s. I mean, is it just how big of a change has it been?
Well, it's interesting, because there's still I feel like we're still in the midst of that evolution. There's still some coaches around like Coach Gray who thrive on offensive sets. There's a lot of coaches going to a lot more open motion and really depending on, more pro style stuff where ball screens and beating guys off the dribble. It's really a lot, but I do know that coaching against Coach Gray, it is tough. And I know that for me as a coach, I said, I can drive my kids crazy trying to teach them, and try to help them stop these sets. And for us, it was just about doing a couple things that could disrupt their offense, which I'm sure everybody tries to do. But if it's their night, you're going to struggle, because they are going to have some quality shooters. And if their sets are working, their timing is good. And like Griffin said, if your energy is not where it needs to be, they're going to take advantage of that. So, it was just a culmination, I think, of those things. But the game itself, you see it all. I mean, I see guys that slow it down in high school. They speed it up. They have 100 sets. I see some teams that don't run any plays at all. Right. So it really is evolving right now. And actually it's fun to watch, to be honest, all the different types of basketball.
And I think another thing about the evolution of the game, when we played in the 90s, I mean, I can't speak for you, but when I played, which was a few years, I'm a couple years older, but we didn't, I don't think, understand the value of the three-point shot then. Because there was a lot of mid-range shot. You're a guy who has made a career out of shooting threes. I mean, is that something that Coach Baylog does he stress to you the importance of the three? I mean, because it seems to me like it's either threes or layups, and there's no mid-range game anymore.
I mean, we have three-point shooters, Mishwan and Colton.
Right.
So Coach definitely uses it as an advantage. I mean, we can hit the shot. So, we'll look for that shot if it's there.
And when we played in high school, we had no idea how valuable evidently we had no idea how valuable the three-point shot was.
I'm telling you, Greg Simpson came to senior high, and he hit 8 threes. And we thought that he was a superhero. Like, I'd never even seen anybody take that many threes in a game. And for him to make, the three-point line for us was like, I don't know. It served as an out-of-bounds line for our offense. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, we got to get inside to run this play.
Right.
So that's how much the game has changed. But I think it's great. You take advantage of the fact that the younger generation has said, look, threes are worth more, and now coaches are coaching to the strengths. I think, it took a while for that evolution to happen, but I really see them moving it back or adding a 4-point line. I do, because I think that it's become too easy.
Right.
You see kids. The kid from Sandusky had 52 points the other night against Lex, and I think he hit something like 9 or 10 threes. It's become too easy, but it's also a fun part of the game that I applaud coaches that take advantage of that and set their offense around their kids who can make that three, because it is a game changer when you got some 3-point shooters on offense.
And with the 3-point line, you're never out of a game. And you guys learned the hard way against a Shelby team earlier this year. I mean, that you guys were ahead by 19-20 in the second half. I mean, when things start to kind of turn against you there, I mean, is it hard to? Evidently, it's real hard to stop that momentum from just rolling right over top of you. I mean, what'd you guys learn that night?
I mean, we had insane energy as a team coming out in the first half. I mean, and then second half when the momentum switch, we just couldn't get any of it back and just couldn't stop them from there.
And it's funny because I covered Shelby at Willard last night.
Mm-hmm.
Shelby scored 31 points in the first quarter, had 51 points at the half. And Willard came back and won that game.
Yeah.
They were down 21 in the third quarter, and they came back and won. And coach and Shelby's coach Nathan Loney said afterward, he said, we've been on the other end. And he said, when it's happening, there's no stopping it.
The worst thing in the world as a coach when a team gets hot from three, and a game could change. I don't care what the score is. What changes a game? A team comes down, hits a three. You get the ball, you go down, you miss a shot or have a turnover. They come down and hit another three, and mentally those possessions can really take you out of a game.
Right.
Because it builds the momentum and confidence for the other team, and it does something to you defensively when a team hits 2 threes on you in a row. And that's what I mean. Even though they're just shots, it's just like if those teams come down and hit 2-point shots, it doesn't do nearly the mental damage that it does to you when you come down and hit 2 threes.
And that's exactly what Nathan said last night. Shelby's coach, Nathan Loney, he said, we came down and took a bad shot or, had a turnover, and a 20-point game becomes a 12-point game.
Right.
A 12-point game, 12 points is still a pretty comfortable lead, but it's not nearly as comfortable as 20 points.
Just doesn't seem that way when teams are capable of hitting threes or hitting threes against you, and that's what I mean. It really has changed the way you have to coach the game and the way kids play the game.
Right. And Griff, you guys, going forward here, the postseason's not too far away. I guess Upper Sandusky is the favorite in that Division II district at Madison, but there's a bunch of teams, you guys included. Shelby's in there, Clearfork. A lot of teams that can probably challenge for that championship, and that district is notoriously difficult here. It has been the last few years. Senior High's been in here recently. Sure. What are expectations for you guys here going forward?
Coach Baylog just kind of focus on ourselves until that really happens, but I think there's not a team that we aren't comfortable with playing.
Right.
I think that we know what we're capable of doing, and that if we play within our as a team and our game, that we'll be fine.
Right. Yeah. And before then, you guys have I think 3 straight MOAC games in a row here against teams that on paper that you probably should beat. Is it hard to stay focused and stay motivated, especially this time of year? This is the grind portion of the season, right? It's tough to get motivated for these games. Are you guys able to find ways to stay motivated here?
I think that's kind of what happened against Norwalk, is just that we just kind of lost our focus and motivation. But yeah, definitely last night got us back on track. Coach Baylog, speaks of the importance of we can't overlook any team,
right?
Especially Gallion with Alsip. He's a pure scorer,
right?
So yeah, every team we just got to stay focused. But we just kind of as a team come together, talk about what we need to do. This is a really close team and stuff like that. But yeah, that keeps us focused.
Right. And I think when you were coaching, it was still 20-game schedule, and granted it's only 2 more, but that makes
a lot.
That's a huge difference. And you're into January, deep into January. It's the grind. Did you have any tricks to keep guys focused?
One of the things that we tried to do was, we talked about the importance of, once we got to a certain part of the season, we changed a lot of dynamics in terms of how we practiced and the things we practiced. And, once midseason came, we really focused on situational basketball. And like Griffin was talking about, you talk about the first 3 minutes of the game, or, we would practice in 4-minute segments. And, during this situation, we're up 7 with 4 minutes to go in the game. These are the situations. This is how we want to play. And you really got to focus on winning games and doing things right in certain situations. Because you're right, it is a grind. The kids are tired of practicing. They're tired of you. You're tired of them.
Right.
And it is a grind. So what you have to do is look forward to getting better for the second season. And like you were talking about the Division II tournament, I agree with what Griffin was saying. Like, you look at that bracket, and it's like any team you match up and somebody says, well, this team will beat this team, and I could see that.
Right.
There's not a team in there that it would just blow you away if they were to win the thing, and that's what makes it fun. And that's pretty much like it is pretty much every year in that district. So every team in that district right now, I believe, is really looking at this second half of the season like as prep, whether they're in their conference races or not, as prep to get ready for this district tournament.
Right, and the good news for Ontario and everyone as Sandusky is no longer in that district.
Right,
they are.
Right. That's great news.
They are an undefeated team, and they are really rolling here.
Yeah,
but to not have them there, I think that leaves the door wide open for anyone. Is that kind of how you guys are approaching it here?
Yeah, Sandusky is a tough team. Like you said, Taj. Going off for 52 against Lexington.
That's awesome.
I don't know how you stop that, but yeah, Sandusky would definitely be a front runner in our division if they were still in it.
Right.
That kid hit 52 points in regulation, and I'm thinking to myself, I watched, his name escapes me, but he went to Ohio State, the kid from Medina, Stockman.
Uh-huh.
He hit 46 points on us in a double overtime game in the tournament, and I thought to myself, this kid's taking every shot. It felt like he took every single shot to get 46, and he hit like 8 or 9 threes in the game. So when I heard the kid hit 52, I'm like, in regulation, I'm like, there's no way.
There's not enough time in a high school game to take to make 52 to take that many shots to get to 52 points.
Right, but I think they said he hit like 11 threes or something like that. But still, I don't care. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Well, good. I think that's gonna wrap us up here for this edition of West Fourth and Goal. We'd certainly like to say thanks to Griffin Shaver for coming down and spending some time with us. And for Effie James and Noah Jones, I'm Kurt Conrad, and join us again next week. Thanks for listening.
Hey, not so fast. Be sure to follow us along on our podcast Twitter account, West Fourth and Goal, RS. That's W4 THAND Goal RS. That's the best way to get the updates on our show and the local sports games as they happen. Also, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on whichever podcast app is your favorite. Thanks for listening.